yet. Adrian Wojnarowski reported that the Cavaliers had hired John Beilein as their new head coach, so he will depart from Michigan, and that means there's an opening in Ann Arbor. And one of the names that has come up is that man on your screen, and that would be, of course, Juwan Howard, who is a current assistant coach in the NBA in Miami, played years and years in the NBA, but was part of the legendary Fab Five. And as we bring Jalen into the conversation from the West Coast, Jay, Will, you were the first one I saw really bring up this part of the conversation. So set it up, if you will, and then I want to hear Jalen's perspective.
Sure. I tweeted out the other day, I said Juwan Howard needs to be the next head coach of Michigan, and they need to bring back the culture to that organization. Now, that was in no way any slight to John Beilein. I know he got them to 2 championships, but I was bringing back the point that, look, when I was a kid from the inner city, like around Newark, Plainfield, New Jersey, like I knew what Michigan basketball was because of the Fab Five. I think there's no better representation of that than Juwan Howard and the tutelage he's had underneath Pat Riley.
And Jalen, as we bring it to you here, the university, it feels, has never really embraced what you guys were and what you remain as one of the most famous college basketball teams of all time. Let's give you the floor.
Go on it, Jay.
All right, let me cook. So let me get this right. First and foremost, congratulations to John Beilein. I think he did a terrific job of help putting Michigan basketball back on the map. We know about the NCAA title appearances. We know about the Final Fours, the Big Ten. He won it a few times. I have nothing but admiration for what he did for my alma mater. However, we didn't know that he was leaving. We did not realize he was going to get a 5-year contract. So now that there's a vacant job in Ann Arbor, let's do a blank canvas of actually who should be the number one candidate. And to me, that should be a no-brainer. There's a guy named Juwan Howard that's from Chicago, which means he's going to be able to help recruit that market, that not only was an All-American in high school, came to the University of Michigan, was a member of the Fab Five, and he was the first person to sign their letter of intent. In theory, he also helped recruit each one of us. And for those that don't know, he was always the adult in the room amongst us. You've never seen Juwan Howard without a haircut. You never seen him without a crease in his pants. You never seen him undisciplined. And he was a technician out on the floor. He goes to the NBA, ultimately gets a max contract, plays a really long time, becomes an all-star, and later in his career becomes a champion. Some of the people that he was around later in his career, like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, how about him being a coach that's gaining experience as an assistant? He's earning his chops under a championship coach like Eric Spoelstra, an organization like the Miami Heat, and the tutelage and validity of Pat Riley. He's currently being interviewed for NBA jobs. Cleveland, Los Angeles, Minnesota, New York have all interviewed him for head coaching jobs. So this is just a legit thing of somebody that happens to be in the pipeline, and Michigan has a head coaching vacancy. He would be the perfect person to help embody what it took to be culturally relevant, because he helped poise the culture. And so for a guy like Juwan, who now all of a sudden finds himself, should I take a pro job? Should I take a college job? I saw how the University of Michigan went after Jim Harbaugh. When they really wanted him, they went and got him. I think that should be the exact same thing with Juwan. You got to go get him. And we can't say nothing negative about what John Beilein brought to the table. He's produced multiple pros. He's produced a player of the year in Trey Burke. But the one thing he did not do, and it was a different style of recruiting, is recruit McDonald's All-Americans.
There you go.
In his entire tenure there, we had a grand total of 0 get recruited to the University of Michigan. I think Juwan Howard is the guy that can bring that back. He will be a terrific head coach. He would be terrific at developing young talent. He wouldn't take no mess off of the players. He will own the Michigan market. And definitely I will be shoes, dress shoes, designer shoes on the floor for as many games as I could. And I'm sure the other members of the Fab Five and Glenn Rice, Sean Higgins, I think he would be the guy that can bring the program back.
Jalen,
literally to where everybody's standing on campus representing.
I hear you, but this is, to me, it's a deeper conversation than that, because the legacy of the Fab Five is something that the University of Michigan for the longest time separated itself from, and even now it feels to me from the outside, and you're Jalen Rose, it feels to me from the outside as though they tolerate the legacy of the Fab Five. They don't embrace the legacy of the Fab Five. That would obviously change if they made this move. That's the part of this I want to hear you talk about.
I agree with you, Greeny, and I just want to paint a picture for the fans. The allegations that were levied upon the University of Michigan that had to do with Ed Martin, for those that don't know, it isn't illegal to know somebody that actually wants to help influence you as a high school kid that's not an affiliate of the University of Michigan. The reason why that became a violation and Chris Webber had a 10-year separation is because he lied to the grand jury. Juwan Howard had nothing to do with that. He's not implicated in any way, shape, or form. And the separation that C. Webb had with the university, that is over. So if he could be a captain at a football game, and hopefully we all get a chance to be 100 and stand locked arms and represent the University of Michigan, and more importantly, represent each other as brothers, I think this will be a huge domino into allowing that to happen. And to your point, Greeny, about tolerating the Fab Five, you're absolutely right. But you know what no one ever did? Return any of that bread that they earned. So to me, it's no harm. There's no foul. If you do hire Juwan Howard, it just so happens that he was a member of the Fab Five, not the other way around.
Preach.
What do you think, Sean?
Preach.
You know, it's funny. I came into this conversation wondering what Jay Will was talking about in culture and everything like that, and then I just listened to Jalen Rose, and I get goosebumps. Jalen, I get goosebumps thinking about the passion in which he's talking about his university, and then the images of watching that team play in my head. Therefore, go back to how it changed the game.
Yes.
I think the first thing for this team, and Juwan Howard is a great candidate for this job. A great candidate. There's other names like people talk about Billy Donovan and all these other names that they're throwing out against the wall right now. That's fine. Juwan Howard is a great name for this job. But I think first and foremost, your last question is the biggest key. They have to go back and they have to open up their arms and they have to wrap it around Jalen and his teammates.
That's what I said when I said bring back the culture. Like, we're at this point now where we're talking about paying athletes off their name and likeness, okay? Like, everybody's like, well, we don't want to, proclaim this team because they were on probation. Like, we should put the NCAA on probation, okay, for a long time. It's a bigger conversation. But if you were to embrace this team, it would change up the way I think kids have thought about this program. Because, look, Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway Jr., Karis LeVert, these guys blossomed into being NBA players. But as Jay Rose said, 0 McDonald's All-American.
Big Ten, that's been a problem for them.
I understand, but Michigan still has that.
Yeah.
They still have that sexiness, that swag. If you reinvent that with Juwan Howard, you can go into McDonald's All-Americans' homes and get those type of players and build the same program at the same level with a different style.
Jalen, I want to ask you the final thought on this. And again, we can talk about the current playoffs and all that any day we want to, but I think this is much more important than that for you and the guys. What would it mean to you and to your fellow Fab Five brothers if that were to happen, if the university were to say, you know what, once and for all, we embrace you guys, one of you is going to be our coach, and we want all of you standing here as we play our games?
That's what it would truly mean for me, Greeny. It would mean that the hatchet is officially buried. And that will be an amazing domino for somebody that truly deserves it. Juwan Howard has coached Summer League. He's earned his dues. He sat behind the bench. He sat on the bench. For the University of Michigan to have the opportunity to embrace its basketball team. First off, I love my university. I have a scholarship endowment there. I had it when I was not necessarily welcome back on campus. Imagine being a player that was an All-American at Michigan and you're actually getting letters for students that you helped endorse that go there, but you're not being embraced by the basketball team. So as a Detroit native, I never stopped loving the university. However, this is an amazing opportunity for them to get a young, terrific head coaching candidate that just so happens to be a former member of the Fab Five that played in Ann Arbor. And I think he would be the guy, like they do so very well in football. Michigan is one of the only schools at major universities that the football program and the basketball program are both required by the fans to be in the top 10. That's an expectation when you are on campus. However, we know that's a football school. They continue to do an amazing job of embracing the football program. You don't see too many snapshots like you see at major universities across the country of 10, 15 former players going to the games, being tributed, being on the coaching staff. Like, they're sprinkled here and there, but it hasn't been like a full tsunami. I think if Juwan was to get the job, that's what would take place.
And J. Rose, almost similar to what Penny Hardaway is doing at Memphis. Could you imagine the kind of splash that would give that university? Like, if he came out with Juwan Howard, I mean, you're talking about cover sports, all these different things, man. It's
forgetting everything else, and it doesn't make any difference to me, the winning and the losing part of it. For you and what I know this means to you as my friend, I hope that it happens. Jalen, have a wonderful weekend. We will talk about all the usual stuff again on Monday. Thank you very much, and we'll
thanks
see
for the
you
love.
over the
You
weekend.
guys doing a great job of holding it down.
Respect, J. Rose.
Again, on the road with the Western Conference Finals, and that will continue. Meanwhile, we will roll ahead. Stephen A. Smith will join us talking about Zion as only he can. And Max Kellerman is here on an entirely different and maybe more important issue. Stay with us. Busy half hour.